Asia's influence in global economies and markets is on the rise. Joining us today at the Asian Investment Conference to talk about this is one of our own experts and thought leaders on the topic, Dong Tao, Chief Economist, NonJapan Asia Economics Research. Dong, thanks for joining us today. What is your outlook for the NonJapan Asia region?
The growth this year is going to be slowing down a little bit, but the worst time of uncertainty is behind us. There are several things improving. The first thing is that the export orders start to pick up. As you know, that Asia depends on external demand quite a bit, so that when the global environment improves, when the US recovery gathers speed, and when European debt crisis seems at least coming down a little bit, we think that that's very helpful for Asia's growth prospect. The second thing is China's liquidity situation seems also improving a little bit, and combining these, I think Asia's worst uncertainty is behind us.
So hard landing or soft landing for China?
Well, for China, I think it's a soft landing. I think there are two key reasons for me to believe that the hard landing risk is coming down. First is the banking sector is willing to lend out now. 4 months ago, all the corporates are really starving for credits, and now the banks start lending, and that's very good news. The other part of the story is that the export sector is also doing a little better. But on the other hand, the property sector is still sick, and organic demand in the investment side, outside of government infrastructure investment, is still slow. So that I think, I would say that hard landing risk is gone, but the rebounding momentum in growth is still missing.
And what kind of an impact will a slowdown in China and India's economies have on the rest of Asia?
Well, these are two largest economies in Asia. China in particular. India is, of course, a very important part, but India's demands for other goods from the other countries is much smaller than China. So really, for this region, China is the call. If China slows down, I think it's going to affect China's demands for commodities, demands for machineries, and demand for electronics products. All of these are going to affect Asia.
You just touched on commodities. The demand is lower at the moment. Will demand return in the medium term?
Well, there are two separate issues. The first issue is cyclically where the Chinese demand for commodities is heading to. There's the second issue in the medium term, how this is going to play out. In the long run, of course, I'm very bullish. I think China has an urbanization story, it will continue. India, Indonesia all have urbanization stories. For the long run, I'm very bullish with commodities. But in the short term, if you talk to the upstream companies, the order flows are terrible. I think in the near future, the Chinese demand probably surprise on the downside. In the medium term, I think the extraordinary robust Chinese demand probably will not repeat. China's golden age of infrastructure boom is behind us. China's golden age of housing boom is behind us. And perhaps also the golden age of exports is behind us. So in the medium term, I think Chinese demand will be solid, but it's not going to grow as much, as fast as it did in before.
Let's stay on China then. Where do you expect acceleration in the next years?
I think the Chinese growth over the next couple of years probably will be somewhere between 7.5% to 8.5%. If the housing sector having some problems, we're probably getting closer to 7.5%. If the housing sector is going to be okay, then 8.5 or maybe even a little higher. Under this scenario, if you compare to China's growth in the past, the Chinese growth is on its knee. But the rest of the world are flat on the floor, then China still looks the tallest. It depends on which angle you look at the Chinese growth. Basically, China has entered a relatively slow growth period time after 5 consecutive years of double-digit growth. We would expect somewhere between 7 to 8% of GDP growth. And also, if you look at the medium term, the trend growth would also come down as the Chinese growth engine shifts from housing, exports to consumption.
Thank you, Dong.
Thank you very much.
Stay tuned to AIC TV for more insights from thought leaders.